you've also spoken for the CIA and the FBI. Can you share your experience of speaking at Langley for the FBI?
It was intimidating because I spoke, as you said, in Langley, and when you see that insignia on the floor like you see in the movies, but they were so strict when I'm waiting in my green room, waiting to go on. They had 2 Marines guarding my door, and I had to ask them.
You're the guest speaker.
Yeah, I know, but come on. I had to ask them to go to the men's room, and they were following me.
You're listening to the TJ Moore Podcast. Today's guest is Steve Rizzo from New York. He is the mindset adjuster. You can't attend one of his presentations and leave with the same mindset. He's a personal development expert, former comedian, motivational speaker, and best-selling author. It's no surprise that he was a Showtime comedy all-star, and he's been inducted into the Speakers Hall of Fame, an honor bestowed upon fewer than 300 speakers worldwide since 1977. Steve, thank you for joining me for today's conversation.
Oh, it's my pleasure, TJ. Thank you for having me.
Now, Steve, I spent a lot of time, basically my whole career in the TV and film industry, in Los Angeles, San Francisco. What are some of the misconceptions that people might have about the show business lifestyle and what it actually looks like?
You have to have an impeccable belief in yourself, especially as a comedian. When you're starting out, you have to know that you're going to bomb. And it's not how many times you bomb, it's how many times you can get up if you believe in yourself until you finally get it down. And I always tell comedians, because they always ask me, have any suggestions? Yes, my number one suggestion and my only suggestion is never, when you're starting out, bring your friends and family to watch you. You're going to bomb. Your first 5 times, maybe even more. And when you bomb in front of strangers, who gives a crap? You don't care. But if you bomb in front of your family and your friends, the next time you see them, they're giving you this look. Well, gee, you were funny at the bar. How come you're not funny here? It's embarrassing. And that can stop you from having the incentive to continue.
You've worked alongside so many comedians over the years, Jerry Seinfeld, Eddie Murphy, Rodney Dangerfield, to just list a few. I want to bring up this PBS special you did called Becoming a Humor Being.
The director of WTTF approached me and said, would you be interested in doing a PBS special? And back in the day, PBS was very, very popular. This was before 9/11, is when I filmed it, but it was aired after 9/11, which was perfect timing because people needed to know how important a sense of humor is during a crisis. It was all about my catchphrase, humor being. And I teach people how they can become a PHB, a professional humor being. And I give them the strategies and let them know how important humor is. Everyone on this planet is born with a humor being, everyone. There are no exceptions. Unfortunately, most people go their entire lives never knowing they have this power within them. Your humor being is of your higher nature. It's the part of you that always brings out the best in you. What your humor being can give you more than anything else is peace of mind and emotional stability. There'd be a sold out crowd, maybe 1,000 or more people, and they're laughing their butts off. And in one part of me, I'm so into this vibe that, wow, these people are having a great time because of me. Then something really intense started happening. And it's simultaneously while I'm on stage, because a part of me is thinking, there are people in this audience right now going through a divorce, having financial difficulties. Maybe they were a loved one and inflicted with some kind of illness. But for that hour and a half that I'm on stage, their problems, their challenges, whatever they were, didn't own them. Why? Because they simply allowed themselves to laugh. Laughter is the pit stop in the rat race of life, and that it gives you enough emotional fuel and repairs to get back into the race again.
And go into the imagination of someone else, because so much of stand-up comedy is you're actually transmitting your own stories, your own life experiences into the mind of the audience. It's almost, some people have compared it to being like hypnotized almost, because your imagination starts getting in sync with the performer. You did a Lake Tahoe TED Talk that was called Humor Being to the Rescue. And it involved telling the story of Christopher Reeve, who played Superman famously. Can you just share some of that with us?
2004, I was performing at the San Diego Convention Center, 6,000 people. I was the opening keynote, and Christopher Reeve was the closing keynote. Now, for those of you who don't know who Chris Reeve is or was, he was the first actor to play the role of Superman in the movies. He was paralyzed from the neck down as a result of a horseback riding competition. The only parts of his body that he could move were his lips, his eyes, and his eyebrows. That was it. And that day when I was on stage performing, I talked about the power of humor, and I coined the phrase, I'm talking about how powerful your human being is. And who comes running after me when I'm getting off the stage in front of the 6,000 people was his wife, Dana Reeve.
Wow.
She runs up to me very emotionally and grabs me, and she whispers and she says, oh my God, that was so wonderful. Chris would love to meet with you. Do you mind? And he was going on about an hour and a half after me. And I said, oh, I would be honored to meet him.
They could see it on the screen in the green room
live
while they were watching.
Yeah, they were watching everything. And I didn't know that. I didn't know he was watching. I just knew he was going on after me at some point. But when I went back to see him, to greet him, it took me back, because when you hear about someone in that condition, that's one thing. But when you see it, it's a different vibe. Like I said, he could only move his eyes, his eyebrows, and his mouth. Even when he talked, he had to take a deep breath out of the ventilator to let the words out. Then he'd have to take another deep breath and breathe in the oxygen to say another sentence. And he takes the deep breath out of the ventilator. He goes, Steve Rizzo, thank you so much for meeting with me. It's an honor. Christopher Reeve was telling me. And he goes, I just want you to know that I live by that philosophy, this humor being thing that you were talking about. It's the one thing that helped me to persevere and to deal with it always helped me to bounce back. It was the humor that helped him to feel grateful for the things that he had left. Dana was telling me, they're both telling me that the third day when he found out the severity of his situation, he didn't want his family, his sons and her to go through this. They'd be better off without him. And she lied down next to him on the bed, on the hospital room, and said, no, you're still you, and we need you. And it wasn't until 2 days later when he saw Dana with his children together and saw the look on their faces, he knew that they needed him. And that was the first thing he grabbed onto that he was grateful for. And one of the things that helped him to give him the initiative to go was Robin Williams, who was his best friend. They went to Juilliard together. And Robin Williams would come in dressed as a nurse, making him laugh his butt off and all that stuff. And he started finding this humor. And one day the nurse came in to wash him up and says, so, Mr. Reeve, how you doing today? He goes, well, I got an itch on my nose. My nails need cutting. Oh, and by the way, I'm paralyzed. How are you doing? And it was sick humor, but she laughed and he laughed. So when he saw me, he loved the phrase humor being.
Yeah, that really resonated with him.
TJ, that was the biggest compliment I've ever received till this day. It reinforced in me that, man, if he gets it with that severity, there's a difference between laughing at something that's very serious and allowing yourself to laugh off the fear of the subject matter. That's what humor does. It takes you to a higher part of yourself, which is why I say your humor being is of your higher self. It's the God part of you that always brings out the best in you.
Yeah, it's a healing energy.
When he was on David Letterman in his wheelchair with the ventilator on him, Letterman asked him how he was doing. He goes, I'm doing okay, but I think I broke my neck again hitting the potholes in this stupid city of yours on the way here. And the audience gave a very awkward laugh because they didn't think it was okay to laugh, but it is okay. This can help you to laugh off your negative emotions, your fears, your doubts, even the horrific things that happen to you in your life. That's why we have the gift. It's one of the greatest gifts God ever gave us. What good is a gift if you don't open it and you don't use it?
Yeah, I know that comedians now struggle with this sort of like, there used to be, they could push the envelope or push the line or cross the line, because that's sort of the point of comedy, is to find where the line is and then jump over it and then jump back. With the level of political correctness, some of them have sort of like said, oh, I don't want to cross any lines because I don't want to be getting canceled. I know globally, like online. So I do want to ask you about some of your experiences working with Eddie Murphy. Tell us about that.
I knew him quite well back in the day. I'm 13 years older than him. He was just 17, 18 when he started out. I was teaching full-time, doing comedy part-time on Long Island. He lived maybe 25 minutes from me on Long Island. And I have to tell you, TJ, I was impressed with the intention, the confidence he had on and off the stage at a club called East Side Comedy on Long Island. Eddie and I were co-headlining. The marquee was Steve Rizzo and Eddie Murphy. Eddie asked the one comedian, guys, he goes, what do you want to do with your life? So the one comedian goes, well, his name is Frankie. He goes, I'm a plumber full time and maybe I'll get the opportunity to do this full time. And there was no concrete substance there. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do. It was like if and maybe and if I'm lucky. And Eddie asked me, and I said, well, Eddie, this is my last year teaching. I already told the school system I'm going to do this full time because I think I could make it. But I wasn't that confident. So I asked Eddie, what about you? TJ, he stood up, chest out, looked at me square in the face, and he said, Steve, I'm going to be to comedy to what the Beatles were to music. It wasn't his ego. He wasn't bragging. It wasn't a bad, sarcastic attitude. TJ, he said it as if he had a crystal ball and he saw his life unfold before him. That's mindset. That's what I talk about to people. You want to make it? That's the mindset you need. No matter what crap life is throwing at you, it's that. And it was not even a year after that Saturday Night Live discovered him at the club and said, we have our next primetime player.
Yeah, you watch those early stand-up videos of Eddie Murphy and the body language. You could turn the sound off and know that this is someone who is self-assured and they're enjoying it. They're not nervous. And like you said, it wasn't just a belief for him. It was like a knowing. It was like, yes, this is my purpose. So anything that's not going to be in alignment with that, I'm going to just ignore it entirely and just go forward,
He brought Saturday Night Live back into the limelight because the first cast, remember, they all retired. Then the new cast came in and Saturday Night Live, nothing against these guys, but it dived until Eddie Murphy came into the forum again.
You speak for so many different companies over the years. Some of them, of course, we all know, American Express, Marriott, State Farm. You've also spoken for the CIA and the FBI. Can you share your experience of speaking at Langley for the FBI?
It was intimidating because I spoke, as you said, in Langley, and when you see that insignia on the floor, like you see in the movies, but they were so strict when I'm waiting in my green room, waiting to go on. They had 2 Marines guarding my door, and I had to ask them.
You're the guest speaker.
Yeah, I know, but come on. I had to ask them to go to the men's room, and they were following me. And when I got to the door, I said, guys, I can do this by myself, and they were trying so hard not to laugh because they have orders. There's you do your job, no smiling, no nothing. I finally had them laughing their butts off. I mean, I really was.
Well, you were the kryptonite to their seriousness.
I always start off with 10 minutes of making the audience laugh. The testimonial that they wrote was off the charts. So, and then they hired me again. I did it twice.
How did you feel when you got the email or the contact from the FBI saying, hey, we want to hire you to be a speaker at our event?
Well, they said, you spoke for the CIA. Do you think you can handle us? I said, if I can handle the CIA, I can handle anyone. And it makes me realize how much I did make a difference in people's lives,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine very many speakers get invited to those places in person. That's its own privilege and honor right there. So when you're speaking to a crowd like that, what are some of the topics that you focus on?
The importance of enjoying the process, no matter how severe your job is and how important it is. When you lose the enjoyment, finding the laughter in between the challenging times, you lose a crucial aspect of yourself. And if you're losing yourself, you're not going to be the best that you can be at work or in your personal life. So if you're having a tough time at work, whether it's a CIA, whether it's American Express, or with any other company, if you're having a tough time and you're married, it's good to talk about that challenging situation that you're going through, because that's venting, that's dealing, that's not holding it in. Same thing at home. If you're having some challenges at home, it's good to vent that. And it's also good to say, hey, man, I have a job that's crucial to people's lives, millions of people. The biggest mistake that human beings make in the workplace today is putting their happiness on hold, because they have a mindset. I'll be happy when I achieve the goal. I'll be happy when I get to where I want to go. Never realizing their subconscious is going, okay, your subconscious is like the genie of your soul. So if you're telling your subconscious it runs 97% of your life, if you're saying it's going to take something to happen for me to be happy, your subconscious is going, okay, I could wait.
Yeah, it's making it conditional.
When Monday comes, people are going, I'll be happy when the weekend gets here. It's not going to happen because your subconscious, the genie of your soul, is going, your wish is my command. And you're already admitting that you won't enjoy your 5 days at work until the weekend gets here. But here's the thing. That mindset stays with you on the weekend, because now you're going to find something else that's keeping you from enjoying the weekend. Because if you say it to your brain's going to find it. Because right now your brain might be going, Jesus, man, every time I'm home in the weekend, my neighbor with the leaf blower and the lawnmower, why can't I have any peace and quiet? Why can't the kids go out and play like other normal kids? Why do I have to listen to that? It's always something. And the whole time, without you realizing it, your life is passing you by. Your joy is passing you by. It's what I call a common sense success strategy. That's what I offer people in my mindset presentations. Why not enjoy the process? And I show them how. It's common sense.
People view a new year in this regard as well, of like, oh, if I hit a calendar milestone, when summer comes, when the new year comes, when my daughter gets married, when the kids leave the house, when I retire, they put these milestones on their happiness. You've told me off camera about your brother, Michael. Is there any story you want to share about how he's impacted your life?
He's the biggest inspiration of my life. Without a doubt. No one has taught me more on how to enjoy myself during the process of extreme adversity more than he has. No one has taught me more on how to create the mindset you need, not just to survive, to thrive. No one's taught me more what it's like to be a leader, to embrace change. He was 100% disabled as a result of the Vietnam War. The only man in medical history that ever survived that wound. He is in medical journals today as someone who beat the odds. 21 feet of his small intestine were either blown out on the battlefield or taken out on the operating table. Other internal organs were damaged. He went from 168 pounds to 105 pounds. What he did with his life, full as nothing short of miraculous. The first time that I saw him, and if it wasn't for my mom and dad in the room with him, I never would have known it was him. And that's when the doctors came in and told my mom and dad the bad news. It doesn't look like he's going to make it. We've sent records all over the world. We don't know anyone that ever can survive through this wound. His two friends from high school walked out of the room. His Marine Corps buddy was hitting the wall saying, why? And I was right next to my brother lying there on the bed, and he was supposed to be unconscious. His arms started rising from his side. He clenched his fist and up came his middle finger. And I looked at him and I told my mom and dad, look what he's doing. Look what he's doing. That was his answer to the doctor's diagnosis. Right there from that moment, I knew he was not going to give up. That was the answer to what the doctor said. That was the answers he gave them every single time they told him what he could and what he couldn't do. Again, to make a long story short, he got out. He was 115, 120 pounds, not even that. Said he was going to go to college. We didn't think he'd be able to do it. He did. He graduated with honors. He graduated with degrees in history, education, administration, went back to the same school that he graduated from, became a history teacher, then an attendance officer, then assistant principal, then they wouldn't let him go. They made him superintendent of the entire school system.
Oh my gosh.
We talk about mindset. And when I give that presentation, I tell everyone how he created that mindset. And that's the perfect example on how to live your life, on how to take adversity and look at a breakup as a breakthrough. And he had an impeccable sense of humor. TJ, he passed away 2 years ago, but his sense of humor never left. It's the one thing that always helped him to bounce back. You talk about someone with an impeccable humor being. And we were talking one day, he said, Steve, he goes, I'm surrendering. And I knew that meant he didn't want to live anymore. He said, believe me, I'm not quitting. It's time. I know it's time. And I honored that. Hospice came in for 2 days and we were preparing for him to pass on. He always turned to the laughter, to the humor. He was the ultimate humor being. And he always did things on his terms. I remember one time when doctors ordered him, they said he can't eat solid foods. You had to have the liquids and soups and juices. And every time the doctors weren't there, my brother and I, or one of his friends, would give him a piece of pizza when the doctors weren't looking, or we'd bring in a meatball hero. I went to visit my brother Michael with his friend Tony, and we brought my brother Michael a meatball hero. And he's eating it, and 3 doctors are coming our way, and they're looking at him, and they yelled at him. They yelled at us. What are you doing? You're trying to kill him. Don't you know we're trying to save you? They're looking at my brother. You only have 21 feet of your intestine were taken out. You have a foot left. In the middle of that, my brother, I've never seen him get this angry. He screams, takes with whatever strength he had, took the rest of the meatball hero, hurled it at one of the doctors, hit him square in the chest, meatballs and sauce all over the doctor's, suit. And he goes, want to know what your problem is? You keep telling me what's missing, and I'm trying to focus on what I have left. I have 1 foot left, and we're doing it my way. Get the hell out of here. 3 days later, that same doctor came back, and I was sitting on the bed with my brother, and I'm talking to him. The doctor came in, sat down on the head of the bed, touched my brother's foot, and said, what you said a couple of days ago makes sense. We're going to do it your way from now on.
Any team of doctors is simply there to help improve the quality of life of the patient. Yeah. So sometimes the terms of that get a little warped because they're on their timeline, their schedule, what they have to get done. Now, are there any other stories you want to tell about working with comedians before we get into the books that you've written?
Chris Rock opened for me. Sam Kinison opened for me. I shared the marquee with Andrew Dice Clay, with Eddie Murphy. Drew Carey was my roommate. He opened for me. Drew helped me move into L.A. He's the one that helped me to move out of Long Island to go to L.A., Rosie O'Donnell opened for me. I've had a wonderful experience with these guys. Now, this is before they were famous, mind you. And that's when I shifted from the comedy to the speaking. I saw Rosie a few times on the plane. And, I remember her saying, we were both sitting in first class. She's sitting in front of me. I didn't know that. And I went up to use the men's room. On the way back, she goes, oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's Steve Rizzo. Oh, my God.
That's memorable. The only time that I've seen Drew Carey in real life was I was invited by the producers to go to The Price is Right. So I couldn't compete. I couldn't be a guest up there guessing the prices, but they do a couple shows per day when they're filming it. And a fun fact about that studio is it's at CBS Television City, and it's the same studio, the same room where the Carol Burnett show was filmed. Oh, wow. And also Real Time with Bill Maher. That is the same studio. So they simply just strip out all the sets, but you would never know. And when I was growing up, I would watch The Price is Right when I would take my golf lessons on our break in the clubhouse. And I always thought it was a huge studio because they would have the car and the jacuzzi and the camper. And I was like, where are they putting all this stuff? Then when I went there in real life, I was like, wait a minute. They do a dance with the cameras to where they make the stage look so much bigger using angles and then using different setups. So they're only really rotating some large items behind the doors. I thought there was like maybe 5 or 6 doors because it didn't occur to me that they were going to be moving the vehicles and the campers and all of that. I thought they just had so many doors and so many things behind all the doors,
Welcome to the guys of showbiz.
Yeah. And then behind the scenes, when you were walking around the studio, you could see them staging, and they had taped out on the ground where they're putting every single prize. And so they had a whole system of, they know what's coming up next, but of course the guests that are guessing have no clue what they could win if they guess the price right,
Wow. You mentioned The Price is Right and Drew Carey. By the way, Drew Carey introduced me on my PBS special.
Wow.
This is what a sweetheart of a person he is. He already was on the sitcom, the Drew Carey show. He said, if you want, you could fly from Long Island, because I had moved back from LA to Long Island. I will use my cameras here on the set to introduce you on your PBS special if you want. And I went, really? You would do that? So I walked into his studio, the Drew Carey studio, and he gave me the intro, which I thought was the coolest thing for anyone to do. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah. What did you think when he was doing the Whose Line Is It Anyway improv show on TV?
If you remember, Johnny Carson was leaving. That was his last week on the Carson show, not even. And Drew Carey was the last comedian he had. And the whole 30 some odd years that Carson was on air, only 5 times with all the comedians that he's had, only did he have a comedian who gave the first appearance and did a great job. Only 5 times did he ask them to come over and sit on the dais with him.
That was an honor to be invited to sit next to him on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Drew Carey was the last comedian. Carson never did this. He put his arm around Drew, put their faces together, looked in the camera and said, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at a star. Drew Carey's manager got phone calls off the hook. He got a sitcom, an HBO special, and the improv thing all within 2 weeks. Out of all the people I know, though, in showbiz, and I know a lot of them, Drew Carey has the biggest heart.
And TV was so different back then. It wasn't, there's 1,000 TV channels and then there's 10 streaming services. I think people forget that when I Love Lucy was on, sometimes they would have more than 50 million people watching.
I knew Rodney Dangerfield quite well. I knew him very well. I headlined his club every single weekend in '86. Went out to dinner with him. I stayed at his place sometimes because he didn't want me to drive home at 2:00 in the morning, because I headlined his room Tuesday through Sunday, 3 shows Saturday. It was 1986. It was a Saturday night. And I say, here's a perfect example of not what can happen to you if you put your happiness on hold, but what will happen to you eventually. And I tell him, in 1986, I was headlining Rodney Dangerfield's Comedy Club, sold out crowd. In the audience were famous people, a lot of times, movie stars and sports figures and politicians. And this was when Rodney was at the pinnacle of his career. He had 2 HBO specials under his belt, 2 hit movies, Back to School, Caddyshack. I mean, they were rated 9 and 10. Oh, man, yeah. Now, the crowd went ballistic. They idolized him. And they're screaming, standing ovation. Movie stars are standing up. Yeah, yeah. And he's doing Rodney. Hey, how you doing, baby? Okay, kid. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? All right. Hey, let's have a big hand for Rizzo. Hey, okay. So he's on stage. The crowd is going ballistic. I'm standing in the back of the room, TJ, and I'm just like saying to myself, man, this guy, these people love him. They love him. He does 10 minutes of new material for his next HBO special that's coming up in a couple of months. And he goes to walk off the stage. And something happened that I've never seen before, and I probably never will. People that were sitting up front got up and they circled the stage. It was like one of those stages. And they interlocked their arms and they wouldn't let him go. I'm still standing in the back of the room. The noise even got louder than it did before when they saw him stepping on the stage. And I couldn't believe it. It was deafening. It took his bodyguard and 2 waiters to get him off that stage. This is what it's like to be a star. He's got the world in the palm of his hands. And it wasn't too soon after that, TJ, where I came to the profound understanding that sometimes holding the world in the palm of your hands isn't what's important. It's the choices you make and the mindset that you have that makes the difference.
One day I had George Clooney just drive up on my street in his convertible. And I was just said, hi, George. Like I couldn't compute why he was on my street until I realized that he's owned a home there for more than 20 years in Studio City. So it's not that he moved into my neighborhood. I moved into his neighborhood. For them, it's just their day-to-day life. But for someone who's just seen their work, that's the only part of their life that we ever know about,
Yeah. But here's where the lessons learned. The show is over. The crowd is gone. The doors are locked. The wait staff is cleaning up. And I'm sitting at the bar with Rodney. I'm right next to him. What is it like to be a star like this? He takes a triple scotch and he downs it. He looks at me and he goes, well, I'll tell you, Stevie, it sucks. I was waiting for the punchline. TJ, there wasn't one. He went on a verbal rampage on how the entertainment industry destroyed his life and how he should have made it 35 years ago when he was younger, when he could have enjoyed himself. And he wouldn't stop. And it was coming from his heart. It was heart-wrenching. See, a lot of people don't know this, but Rodney had to quit show business. I live in Babylon, Long Island. He lived there many years ago. He had to quit show business for 18 years to become an aluminum sider and put on shingles in people's house to support his family because he couldn't get work as a stand-up. I tried to give him a pep talk. I said, man, what are you talking about? Didn't you hear that crowd? This is the now. Listen to them. You were voted one of the top, the number one recognizable face in the country and the number one comedian in the country. You have 2 HBO specials under your belt. You have another one coming up. You have 2 hit movies rated at 10. You're responsible for launching the careers of major comedians today. What else do you want? And it's like what I said to him, one in the ear and it came out the other. He goes, well, I don't expect you to understand, Stevie. That's what he called me. He goes, all I know, I dedicated my whole life. And this is what I want everyone to get. I want your listeners to get this for this one moment. And he goes, and now that I got it, I sacrificed my family, my wife, my daughters for this. And for what? He goes, it sucks. Now, here's a man that should have been living his dream. Instead, he was living a nightmare because he unknowingly put his happiness on hold. He created a mindset, a belief system that literally stated, I cannot and I will not be happy until I reach a certain status. Unfortunately, it took him a lifetime to get there. And the irony is, even though he made it, even probably more than he ever imagined, he still couldn't enjoy it because the genie of his soul, TJ, was letting him know his subconscious was still in that same mindset. Even though he got the HBO special, he was filled with joy for a moment, but then he went back and says, what else do I need to make me happy? What else do I need? Bypassing all those little things that he could have focused on. And that's what people do.
This is an example related to this that I think most people could relate to. They might get 1 or 2 weeks off per year from their career to go on vacation. So they sort of put this vacation time on a pedestal of I'll be happy when I'm in Florida or in Hawaii, Costa Rica. So they sort of like delay it, and it's a lot of buildup. It's a lot of anticipation. But then when they go on that cruise, and now there's TV shows like The White Lotus that get into all the psychology of this. When they're on vacation in that special place, they didn't leave themselves, their mindset, their behaviors at home. They took themselves with them. And their poor family has to suffer through and tell them, hey, can we not focus on all the problems of work? You're on vacation. There's a quote about how artists, when they get together for lunch, they talk about money. And when business people get together for lunch, they talk about art, meaning we sort of idolize the other side, or we might be processing it. Or if you're at work, people want to talk about what they're doing in their real life. But when they get home, then your family asks, how was work? So really separating the two is sort of an illusion.
You know, it's funny. It amazes me. If you look up the definition of success in any dictionary, Google it, and it'll just say, and I'm paraphrasing, to achieve a goal, to get that which you desire. Nowhere in the definition of success, nowhere are the words happiness, happy, joy. And that totally blows me away.
You've written several books. One of them is called Get Your Shift Together. And then another is called Motivate This. And your new book is Conversations with Bob. Can you just explain to people what is the concept behind Conversations with Bob?
It took me 6-7 years to write. I wrote it at the lowest point of my life. A divorce after 34 years of marriage, which was my decision. I moved from Long Island to Marina del Rey. And I lived there for a couple of years to get my life together. And it was Venice Beach at 4:30 in the morning. But I was going to a 24-hour gym. And after the workout, I had a hard time sleeping. I was living right on Marina del Rey. But I went to Venice Beach, and that's where I walked. And it was one morning, I lost all control of my emotions, my anger, my fear, and I started yelling at God, screaming. If anyone would have heard me, they would have called 911. They probably would have been arrested. I mean, I lost who I was. You know, after an emotional venting, you're just exhausted. I got up and I walked and I took a step and I said, what the hell is wrong with me? And what the hell am I doing here? And then I took another step and I heard a voice say, you know what's wrong and you know why you're here. You're just too caught up in your own drama to find the answer. And I went, where the hell did that come from? Now, it wasn't a voice. It was my inner voice.
Yeah, but it was wisdom that was different than the panic and the catharsis that you were going through.
So I take another step and I ask another question. Another answer came. Another question, another answer came. And I said, wow, this is blowing me away. I'll make a long story short. I took off. I went and got in my car. I drove to my apartment in Marina Del Rey. And I started typing and I asked another question, then another answer. And I was there for hours. I was exhausted. I fell asleep for about 13 hours. I woke up. I went back to my laptop and I didn't even remember half the stuff that I was writing. But I continued and it was all dialogue, question, answer. And then all of a sudden, after a couple of days, I said, oh my God, I'm writing a book. Then my sense of humor came into play. And then my imagination came into play. So the whole book was evolved from around that premise. The subtitle is A Timeless, Entertaining Dialogue for Living an Extraordinary Life. It's a dialogue between two characters, Bob and Bernie. Everyone has an inner Bob and an inner Bernie. Bernie lives in the negative zone where challenges get blown out of proportions and problems turn into emotional havoc. And everyone on this planet experiences this, where people think somehow their life isn't working on any level. And Bob has the answers and solutions to all of Bernie's questions and problems. Bob is God. Bernie doesn't realize this until at the beginning of the conversation. And God gives Bernie the common sense success strategies and shifting habits he needs to turn his life around. It's funny, very profound. It's getting great reviews.
If you get into the topics of hypnotherapy, where they're having you lay down and getting you to the most relaxed state, and also there's another technique called the quantum healing hypnosis technique, QHHT, where they're probing your subconscious or the soul level, let's say.
Right.
There's many different ways to label these things that are ultimately they're mysteries. The answers that come from hypnotherapy really shock people because they usually record those conversations and give them to the patient. And when they go home and they say, you can listen to it tonight or wait a couple of weeks. When they listen to it, they're surprised because there's a wisdom coming through that has nothing to do with the fear-based mentality that was keeping them stuck in what they were doing.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Yeah.
So this is sort of like in the same theme as that of trying to get people to understand that they can ask those bigger questions of themselves and listen. I think people's schedules are so full and then we sort of distract ourselves into oblivion unless you're studying breath work or yoga or meditation or these more Eastern philosophies that are just simply trying to get the body and the mind to calm down. People are not giving themselves a chance to listen.
Well, social media is making that even worse. I mean, it's got its great points, but it's got a lot of bad points too.
So if people want to go and buy Conversations with Bob, where should they go to buy it?
They have to come to my house and I'll give you a copy. No. All you have to do is one of two things. You can go to my website, steverizzo.com, or you can punch right in direct to yourinnerbob.com. And the whole Bob website will come up and you'll see examples. You'll see videos, Word According to Bob videos, which are really, really cool. And I think you should do that, TJ, because if you did, there's one video there. It's called, Are You Married to Your Job? And we were talking about that before. And it's a perfect story. The Word According to Bob. I'm not going to tell you about it, but if anyone's interested, go to that website and order the copy. And I would appreciate if anyone there, if you buy the book on Amazon, give a review.
To hear more experts share their story, subscribe to the TJ Moore Podcast on YouTube and follow this show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to listen anywhere you go. Like and comment on this video if you found today's conversation valuable, and share this episode with someone in your life. I'll see you next week.